they come true. Our sister Carla Gune, was somewhere in the kitchen there, for checking out the hotels where our guests are going to stay. Elizabeth Yanga, Vicky, Susanna Dumo, Naila, and our brother Nadir for the catering services, the shopping, going up and above to make this place look the way it is, beautiful. Not forgetting our lady who came here up to yesterday decorating the place for us, Sister Lorna, and her daughter Queen. Our online team, the brain behind the organizing committee, thank you very much for your encouragement, for your support. Susanna Dumo for putting the program together. Luca Molinga for the banner. You see? And I'm sure when you guys came in, you guys saw our banner. That one is something that we carry from province to province. It shows who we are as ESSCA. Yorubena for the flyers. And our team, the setup team, Daniel Dumo, Mustafa, and the others. Our ladies from Calgary, who were here early to give us their support. As always, thank you very much. Our DJ, Michael, thank you for being there for all of us. This will be an opportunity for all of us to learn from each other and grow together. Because when we are proud of who we are, we will do wonderful things. Our team for this year, as we all know, ESSCA Canada Revitalization. We need to know what is going on with ESSCA. This is a question from women in the community. I would like to thank our sponsors, without whose support this event will not stand. We call her the decoration lady, who were able to support us, Sister Lorna Boy, One Touch Ministry for All Nations, Sister Marcelina. We have Life at Zero Development Society of Canada, that is from Baco. We have IBA Cleaning Services and Water Detailing, that is our brother Nadir. We have Rose Realtor Calgary, this is from one of our youth based in Calgary, she's down there. We have Great Way Financial Group, that is Gunebi Kudu. We have Christina Keji and Christina Onjia for their donations as well. Welcome our dear Isabella from Australia. This is what it means when you have Equatorial at your heart and you're proud of who you are. You will cross oceans to come over. We have guests from out of town. Our Michael and Anne from Saskatchewan. We have people from BC, all over Canada.
Thank you, Gune, for that. Our next activity now we're going to do is we're going to hear our national anthem. And it's going to be ours, the South Sudanese and Canadian. And before we do that, I think it's important for us to acknowledge the land that we are in today, where we are holding our meeting today. And where we are holding our meeting today is, we are holding our meeting on land, on Treaty 6 territory, and we honor and acknowledge all the First Nations, Métis and Inuit people who have lived, traveled, and gathered on these lands for thousands of years. So with that, we're going to stand up and have South Sudanese national anthem first, and then we will go with it.
It's all presence right now, because you know that we gathered here not for nothing. We gathered here to share and learn from one another, oh God. We gathered here to fellowship. This has been a long-awaited congregation. And now that we're here, oh God, we call on you to be among us, to touch us, to inspire us, to speak with love, joy, and care for one another, oh God. As we will be talking about important things that will transform our community, improve our kids, and change the future of South Sudanese in Canada, especially the Equatorians, oh God. As we sit here, Lord, may your light shine upon each and every one of us. I bless all these speakers that will be bringing words of inspiration and knowledge to all of us. Words of awareness that will create a deep knowledge, because we know that knowledge is power, God. We thank you. We thank you for everything that you have done. We thank you for people that have traveled. Lord, we thank you for those ones that are still on their way traveling, coming in to join us, oh God. May you bring them with your peace, oh God. As we sit and eat, oh God, may you bless everything. May you bless everything that comes out of our tongue and our mouth. And as we speak to one another, let your love shine, oh God. We bless this day, not only this day, this weekend. We bless this land, and we bless each and every one of us. Thank you.
We talk about the theme of the conference, which is revitalization of our community. We can't really do that, and we can't really restore anything without pulling our youth with us along the way. So we cannot leave our youth behind and then hoping that the future will be any different from where we are. So I think with that, we have our keynote speaker, and she's a very young lady, very intelligent, who is, she's gonna talk to us about exploring some of the things that as youth, what are some of the challenges that they are facing, and that's going to be through the lens of the youth, and I think it is important that we hear from them, and so that we can be able to incorporate some of those things as we move on with this day and with our community. So Miss Olga is going to be talking to us, and is going to give us some of the success as well. Not that it's only challenges that they're facing, there are also some successes that maybe some of us don't see, and we may look at it as a challenge or something, or maybe it's a challenge to us as adults, but for them to look at it as a success. So she is going to explore that with us, and then she will also give us some concrete strategies on how we can move forward to address some of the challenges that they're facing, and then we can maybe take that and incorporate as we move on with ESSCA in the future as well. And so with that, I am going to call Ms. Olga to come and address us, and she is our keynote for today.
Good morning, everyone. As she said, my name is Olga. I hope you guys are all doing absolutely wonderful. And thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak this morning. While I now feel absolutely honored to be up here talking to you guys, I do have to admit that honor was not the first thing that I felt when I was asked to speak. It was confusion. One purpose of this speech is to highlight the successes of Equatorian youth in Canada. So for me, the confusion came from thinking, how can I comment on success when I myself don't feel that successful? My mind immediately went to the vast amount of other Equatorian youth, many of whom I get to call a friend, who are doing such amazing things and excelling beyond belief. Nonetheless, the reality is that I had to prepare the speech, so I started reflecting on what personal successes I could potentially use as examples. I'm going to sound like I'm bragging a little bit, so I do apologize in advance, but I would like to share what came of my reflection, and you guys can decide if you think I have elements of success or not. I promise there's going to be a point to this. So I'm currently in my 3rd year of the Doctor of Dental Surgery or Dentistry program, which means that in 2 years I will be a doctor. Before this, I obtained my Bachelor's of Science in Biology and Psychology with distinction. During that degree, I received 6 awards. I helped founded 3 organizations, one of which was the South Sudanese Youth of Canada, and I volunteered with 4 other organizations. I worked the entire time, having 2 full-time jobs in the summer, and was even named most valuable player of my rugby team one season. Now, being in dentistry, I'm the only Black undergraduate student in the entire program. I have received 4 awards in my first 2 years. I am treasurer of the Dental Students Association. I'm working on my 2nd research project. I sit on the professionalism committee. I'm an editor for the Alberta Academic Review Journal. And most importantly, I'm a little bit tired. So, circling back to the point that I promised you all, while it was a nice self-esteem boost to reflect on my own accomplishments, it was more heartwarming for me to recognize that the people I view as more successful and as my genuine inspirations are my Equatorian friends. Amongst them, we have clinical psychologists, many with their master's degree, law students, medicine students, nurses, social injustice advocates who are creating the changes we want to see, business owners, we have a neurosurgeon in the making. I mean, if you want to see success in our youth, all you have to do is look around. Most, if not all, have very similar stories as mine and have extensive accomplishments. Additionally, while doing a bunch of different things is admirable and certainly contributes to success, I want to highlight that all of these things that my friends and I have accomplished were in spite of the numerous challenges that we have faced, and I think that in and of itself is the epitome of success. So, I guess the question then becomes, how do we keep ourselves and the youth to come on this trajectory? The challenges that many of us have overcome are similar in nature and, dare I say, familiar. Unfortunately for us, some of these challenges that hinder our success are structural in nature and rooted in racist, discriminatory, and outdated ideologies. Some of it stem from deep-rooted trauma that hinder us from a more personal standpoint and run the risk of becoming generational. Although I have hope and certainty that we will create change in these aspects, we might not be the generation that gets to see the fruit of our labors. However, there are other challenges that I myself have faced, and I imagine that some of our other youth have faced, that we as a community can address. One major challenge that I would like to speak on, more from personal experience, especially now being in a program that is structured to weed out the weak people, is this sensation and feeling of loneliness. And I'm not referring to the presence of physical people around you, but feeling like you are alone in your journey. For a lot of us, we are the only one, or one of a few people who look like us in these programs or life ventures. The representation is limited as it is. So yeah, okay, we can't change racism overnight, but you know what we can change? Being there for each other. And I mean really, truly being there for each other. I think a lot of us have historically interpreted being there for each other and showing up as knowing everything about the situation, but that's not true. The importance of moral support is so severely underestimated, even when it's been known to make a world of a difference, because self-motivation can only take you so far. I did not know a single person in dentistry when I first chose that career. I had to figure out which courses to take, how to apply, how to take the entrance exam, how to pay for the entrance exam, everything. And it's fine, it all worked out in the end. But in my class, it feels like almost everyone has a mom, a dad, an uncle, an older brother, an aunt, a dog, someone who is a dentist or a doctor that helped them or continues to help them. My parents stayed out of my dentistry education-related business, and I know it's because they felt that they had nothing to contribute in that aspect. But in hindsight, I've come to realize that's not the case. Through what seemed to be unrelated advice, my parents taught me how to make good decisions that translated into finding my way through a new experience. My mom, bless her soul, my mom, she was the first person I told that I had an interview for U of A because I wanted her advice on what to wear. The morning of, she comes down to the door and does this beautiful prayer for me. And I don't know if she remembers this, but right before I left, she said to me, "What a blessing it would be for you to get into school here so I can cook for you and you don't have to worry about food." I just want to make it clear that I can cook and I do cook, but even at my big age, her first thought was how can I make her life easier in the best way I know how, even though she felt like her resources were limited. Every time I start to feel lonely, which happens more than you would think in such a rigorous program, I remind myself of those words, and I am re-energized and re-motivated. I'm reminded of why I'm working so hard in the first place. My drive to keep going doesn't come from the fear of God my parents put into me for bad grades in elementary, or my fear of being judged by people in my community for being a failure. It comes from a place of love. It comes from remembering that even before I submitted my application for dentistry, it was Yawa, it was Vivia, it was Antigone who were already referring to me as doctor and future dentist. It comes from knowing that I can avoid mistakes just by having a conversation with my dad, because he teaches and guides through his life stories. It comes from knowing there is blood at home after a long day of school. Leaving the youth to figure out every single thing out on their own is not sustainable. Trying to encourage and motivate through fear and ridicule and judgment is not sustainable. Imagine the possibilities if we all shared and experienced the love I felt that day with my mom amongst our community. Our parents shouldn't be the only Equatorian people we feel encouragement and love from. It's not a requirement to know every single detail to have faith in what the youth are doing, regardless of what direction you choose. Trust in their business idea. Trust in their degree choice. Trust in them as an athlete. And when things work out, we need to celebrate the wins and successes, no matter how small they may feel. This can be done through something as small as taking a moment at a community event to put the spotlight on someone, or using some of our funds and resources specifically for these types of celebrations so that we can invest in our youth. On the other side, it is also so crucial that we use downfalls and mistakes as opportunities to learn and grow instead of opportunities to shame and compare. I see my friends in my class celebrate things like a high grade, and their family members will celebrate with them, but when I get one, all I think to myself is, I had to do that, and I had no other option. I don't think it's sustainable to stay trapped in this mindset of no mistakes and no other options, because I look around and I see all of the options that you, our parents, our community leaders worked so hard to give us. It would be such a shame to let it go to waste by creating environments that foster burnout. Bad decisions are made in a state of burnout. Resentment is created in a state of burnout. Don't get me wrong, I understand that the intensity comes from a place of caring mixed with underlying fear. You want to help us avoid making the wrong decision or harming ourselves or harming our future. But maybe it's time we took a step back and asked ourselves, after all this time of trying only that approach, has it really worked out the way that we wanted it to? What if we work together to change gears and come to a compromise that balances boundaries, guidelines, and expectations, while also encouraging and providing support in the ways that we as the youth need you to? The challenges you grew up facing are not the ones we necessarily face, and it doesn't help to negate or pretend that issues like mental health or self-esteem or exhaustion from trying to balance everything don't exist. Understanding my physics hormones isn't as helpful as showing me you understand why I feel overwhelmed after a long day of navigating a society that wasn't created for me. We are already told every day by the world that as we stand, we are not enough. It doesn't help being told the same thing when we go home. We are also stuck in this survival mode, and I get it. It's what most of us have always known. But don't we want to stop surviving and start living? Start thriving? The youth are the way to do that. And we have shown you through our successes that we want this as bad for ourselves as you want it for us. But we can't get out if we keep getting dragged down with bad habits, judgment, and discouraging words that are disguised as encouragement and motivation. We have to want better for ourselves, but it is not enough to just want. We have to come together to listen, prioritize, and strategize. We have to act. We have to piggyback off all the phenomenal trailblazing youth in our presence who have opened up opportunities and resources and choose a different, brighter future for ourselves as a community. For so long, our conversations have been about our struggles and how to overcome them. Oh, is this working? For so long, our conversations have been about our struggles and how to overcome them. And I think that we let ourselves become so immersed and preoccupied with the struggle that we we are forgetting to take a moment to look around and see the good that has come from all those years of conversation and heartache. The work was not in vain. While it is very important to continue to address the devastating struggles we face, our conversations and gatherings don't have to only be about suffering anymore. Not when there is so much beauty and success in our stories now. I don't want any Ecuadorian doctor, lawyer, dentist, business owner, or engineer in the next generation. And trust me, there's going to be a lot of them. But I don't want any of them to question why they were chosen for a speech about success. They should know exactly why. Thank you.
Wow. That was really loaded with a lot of information. I'm hoping that everybody here heard exactly what she is talking about and some of the challenges that most of our youth are facing here. You know, it might not be similar, but you know, it's almost the same. That, you know, even as adults, sometimes we feel the loneliness as well. You know, and we feel like we are alone in one place, or we doubt ourselves sometimes, even though, you know, we shouldn't be doing that. And I really appreciate that you brought that up, and wow, that was really good. That is the reason why I feel like, you know, as we talk about moving forward and revitalizing the community, I think it is important for us to look into our youth. You know, some of us, we maybe, you know, you only have 20 years left. At the end of the 20 years, you're gone. And then you are left, your kids are left behind. And if we are not fostering this kind of self-confidence in them, then we are going to be, the society is not going to stand. And we're going to disappear, you know. For the next panel, I have Yawa Edie. She's the one going to moderate this panel, and it's going to be youth who's going to be talking about this. And we're also going to hear more of the role and the contribution of youth in our community. And I think it is really important that we hear them and we incorporate them as we move forward. Yawa?
And so it won't be the full 2 hours, we'll make it around 40 minutes. And the way that this is going to work is I have a few questions for the lovely ladies today, but this is also an opportunity for you all to get to hear thoughts directly from the youth too. So at about 30 minutes, I'm going to actually turn the conversation towards all of you to ask questions that maybe you've had or came up in this conversation about the way Ecuadorian youth are experiencing things today. So first off, we'll just start with an introduction of your name, your educational background, where you're from. Not everyone here is from Edmonton. And also one thing that you love about being Ecuadorian, and bonus points if you can do it in Arabic.
The last thing's not going to happen. Okay. I think I gave a pretty good introduction. I'm Olga. I don't think I said I am from Edmonton, not from Edmonton, but I live in Edmonton. What else is there? Education. I'm in dentistry currently, and there's so many. Let me sort through. I think we are the kindest people, and I love that our kindness is innate because I take pride in being kind. I think it's important, so that's the one for me.
Yeah, EDMONTON. Your tribe.
Bari. Sorry, I forgot. My tribe is Bari.
So hi everyone, my name is Vivian Natana. I'm from Regina, Saskatchewan. Shout out to my aunties and uncles over there from Regina as well. I'm really happy to be able to, to be here with everybody today. So my background as well is I'm from Muru on my dad's side, and and Papua on my mom's side as well. So really excited again to be here with everybody. Educational background, I'm a social worker, a registered social worker. I'm currently working with the University of Regina in the online therapy unit, and we'll get a chance to kind of talk a bit more about what that looks like for me and kind of my career background as well. And then what I love about being Ecuadorian, I would say that aside from Mulake Moods and Basico and all of the food and everything like that, I would say that I think I really love our hospitality. You know, we were joking in the back that even the food that's back there's no hotel in Edmonton that can give you that kind of breakfast that you have back there. So honestly, just really being able to just enjoy like the hospitality, like when people see Equatorians, when they're part of our events and everything, you won't consider us to be a people who lack in any type of resource, because the little that we have, we'll make sure to share with everybody. Even if it's one slice of cake, we'll all divide that slice of cake amongst each other. And you know, there's challenges that come with that kind of mindset sometimes as well, but it is something that I've really benefited from in my life as well. So yeah, that's a little bit about me, and looking forward to learning about everyone else as well.
Hi everyone, my name is Rose Lukiru. My father is James Lukiru, and we're from the Didinga tribe. Anyone from my tribe is here? Yeah, my educational background, I have a degree in sociology from the University of Calgary. I have worked with the federal government in the immigration sector, so I'm pretty knowledgeable in that field, but I am a full-time entrepreneur now with a real estate business based in Calgary. And what I love about being Equatorian is just we know how to gather and be together and support each other in any way, similar to what Vivia said about hospitality. That is the #1 thing that other people, like my friends, my husband from Nigeria, they notice that Sudanese people love to come together. They see the support that we have for each other, and let's just keep that out.
Amazing. So, based on everything you guys mentioned, it kind of sets us up with a great tone for the first question, which is, you know, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe more youth here today, but there could be more. There could be more youth attending these events. So, with that being said, what do you guys think are some of the barriers or hindrances to more youth participating in community events such as this with our elders and with some of the people who are really strong community leaders?
Sure. I know for me, and this is becoming a bigger, not a problem, I don't want to say a problem, it's a good thing, but the time commitment and not being told, like not having enough notice about events is really difficult. Like I know when Antigone asked me to come, she was like, I know you're very busy, I'm trying to give you as much time, because our schedules are like set so far in advance as we're trying to do all these things. So it makes it really difficult when it's like Thursday and you're like, Saturday we are doing this thing. Like that makes it really hard for us to move our lives around and attend these events. And then I think the other thing is the way that these events are sometimes marketed, for lack of a better word. A lot of the events that we attended as when we were younger and our parents brought us to, you would go and it would be for the elders, it would be for all the aunties and uncles, and like that's what we remember. So now when it's like there's this ESSCA conference, all I can think of is, well, it's not for me, it's for them, why would I go? So I think if we maybe put more effort into communicating with the youth and showing them why it's important for them, why it's relevant to them, what they could benefit from it, it might increase participation.
Yeah, I would agree, and just kind of piggybacking off of what you said around just kind of like the time aspect. I think with that is kind of a difference in values. I would say that for Junubin and like for some of us, even like coming to the program today, we were like, okay, it's at 8, according to Junubin time, like 8:30 or 9, or I'll message the group chat and I'll say, is anybody else there? And then, you know, you'll start to then, you know, get ready and everything and show up. And I think one of those things is also just a difference in values. It's not to say that necessarily one approach is wrong or one is correct, but I think it's just understanding that, yeah, for a lot of youth in our community, you are balancing just a different set of values, whereas in Canadian society, you're expected to be extremely time conscious. You know, 8 o'clock means 8 o'clock. There's just that kind of thing, whereas balancing that with, you know, your culture, where it's just like, okay, if somebody needs you, you'll just show up regardless of what time, and we're just happy that you came. Even if you came late, we thank God that from wherever you came from, you took the time to be able to show up. And I think that's kind of our approach as human beings, is, that's just kind of how we see things. We're not that we don't care about time, but we value time in a different kind of way. So just trying to be able to meet different aspects of our community where we're at is important. I would say that another aspect that probably keeps a lot of young people from being here, and just kind of by a show of hands, how many in the room here are parents who have kids? Where are your kids? These are the questions that need to be asked as well, right? Where it's just like, you might have kids, and then of course everybody has a response. Well, yeah, all these different types of things, which are very valid, right? Maybe for different reasons they might have their own commitments. They might just not want to come. Oh, the programs are X, Y, and Z. Whatever your children are sharing with you about why they might not want to come, it's boring. Okay, that's a valid reason. There's too much talking. Okay, all these different types of things. Or for some of them, what they're actually saying behind it is, again, what I would say Olga shared, which is they don't necessarily see themselves as being incorporated into the program of events, right? So how do we make room for that? I think a big part of it starts with hearing the ideas of you, and not just as an idea, but actually taking those ideas seriously as well. Because when a small child comes to you and they tell you that, at my birthday party, I want to see X, Y, and Z, and you listen to them, and you do that thing for their birthday, you buy the cake, they're very excited because it means that you listened to my idea, you valued me, and you carried out that idea, right? So how do we do that within the context of our events? I think listening to kids as being part of an important part of our community is extremely important to that as well. So just a few ideas on that.
Derek mentioned some really great points, but to add on to that, number one is communication, and also definitely if there was a youth committee that could help with the planning and really focus on getting youth to come to the event, I think would have really helped. Maybe some social media coverage, because I learned about the conference from a WhatsApp group. Not too many us youth are included in that group to know about this conference in the first place. Second of all, I think it's also encouragement from the parents themselves, right? Like, if your kids have got a promotion, just finished school, or is working a really good job that's highly needed in the industry, maybe bring that up to the committee to have them recognized, because then at least we show some light to various people and not just three of us. There may have been a lot more other kids up here if you had just shown initiative to maybe let the committee know that, hey, I want to recognize my child in any little way. And I know a lot of you have kids who are either graduating or they're working right now. They all need to be recognized so that they feel initiative to come to these events. Thank you.
100%. I think that's a great point. I don't know if it was our community, but every year there's like an end of high school barbecue where all the graduating kids in the community comes together and hosts a barbecue, the kids who are graduating. And that's something fun that youth want to come to. So more things like that. Thanks for bringing that up. Would you guys say that maybe a disconnect with culture and heritage is also some of the things that maybe stops youth from attending such events?
I would say yes. Jump in when you have something to add, for sure. I would say for sure. I think that sometimes people can assume that culture is just like translated by way of just being close to somebody. So because I'm sitting by my mom and dad, then that culture will just somehow be absorbed into me just because I'm around them, and that's often not the case. Whether it's language and things like that, or food, like you might think that that's kind of the most you're doing is just showing them, but I think oftentimes we can assume that that's enough. And in this culture, where I would say that there's so much of an emphasis on teaching Canadian culture in schools, like whether it's the songs, the background, the stories, every day from when we start school in kindergarten up until your university career, you're being pushed with information about what it means to be Canadian. If somebody asked, the average person, I would say that grew up here, what does it mean to be Canadian, they could tell you. But if somebody asked you, what does it mean to be South Sudanese, or what does it mean to be an Equatorian specifically, most people, like young people, might not be able to tell you exactly what that means, right? It's something that has to be taught over time. So when it comes to, I think, something in terms of learning about that, where it's like, what is something that maybe parents or elders might be able to do to support that, I would say that charity begins at home, in the sense of telling the story of, telling the story of your family, not just mom, dad, uncle, and auntie that you talk to over the phone, but what is the origin of your culture? Like, which village are you from? How did you guys move from the village to Juba, and all these different types of things? I think that journey is so important, because for myself, I know that when I was younger, being able to see photos where it's like, these are my uncles and aunties and grandparents, then when it came time to meet them later on in my life, they were shocked that I already knew them, because they're like, how did you know us? There was no WhatsApp at that time. There was no video call or anything like that. But because we got to know their stories so much, we know that they're a part of us. And I think that in terms of building those connections, it starts with how much you share of your story. And I think we'll probably talk more about the mental health aspect of that later, but we know that it can be painful sometimes to share some parts of those stories, because, you know, with war and a lot of death and things like that, it can be difficult to bring up stories of people from your past and all of that and your journey. But I think many of the young people probably feel like it's one thing to learn about, oh, the Kakwa people did this, that, and the third, but your Kakwa mother, you don't actually know a lot about her personal story. What was it like for her growing up as a child and all of that? So it can feel very big to talk about your entire culture or your tribe's history, but just starting even with your own story can actually open up a lot about what the culture values and everything like that. So it starts, I think, really with just sharing more about yourself and what you know, and not feeling like you need to be to talk about your culture. No, just share what you experienced, what you learned, and from there a lot of information will actually come up. So.
I think one other thing that maybe we're sometimes afraid to admit is the sense of embarrassment that comes when we do try to get involved in culture. When we put in that effort, instead of it sometimes being like welcoming arms, it's like, why don't you know this already? And it's like, you never taught me, so like I don't really know how I would know it otherwise. So maybe if we like try to reframe how we're approaching teaching and sharing our culture, and go away from the you should know this, why don't you know this, to emphasizing why our culture is great and all the things that you can learn. It's like, I don't think it's ever too late. And you know, she was talking about how there's the Canadian integration aspect of things, and I get it. Like, we really, when we came here, we really wanted to learn English, we really wanted to fit in and whatever. And now it feels like, oh well, I wish that I would have held on to that when I was younger. But it's like, it's not too late to get those pieces back of yourself. It's not too late to learn the language. It's not too late to converse with your parents. But it does suck when you try to do that, or you try to go to events and be involved, and you get like shamed for not knowing because you should know, instead of like them trying to help you out and be more immersed. Because I don't know, like with my friends, I look around and I can tell that a lot of us are trying, and sometimes we'll come back and we make jokes about, well, this is what I just learned, and I learned this new, you know, and it's exciting. We want to be a part of our culture. Believe me, you really do. It's just sometimes made hard, and you know, no one wants to feel embarrassed. We want to feel a part of things. So.
Just something short to add to that is, it doesn't have to be like a scheduled meeting with your kids at a specific time to talk about your experiences and your background. It could be a simple dinner table talk where you are having dinner with your kids and you're just sharing bits and pieces about yourself, so that we can understand who you are, we can understand the culture a little bit more. It doesn't have to be a one-time conversation. It can start with those small talks and grow from there. And I feel that gives us the opportunity to ask those questions comfortably, like to learn more, and to also create a space of trust and knowledge sharing at times like that. So I think having those spaces and that time to talk with your parents to learn about your cultures would be valuable. It's not something that has to be a whole day worth of talking, or you have to like schedule a time to do so. It could be at those informal times as well.
Thank you, ladies. I'm just kind of flipping it back to everybody here. Again, how many of you are parents and have children? I feel like there is more hands.
There's less hands.
Yeah. Because I'm going to ask, how many of you can say that you know your kids can speak Arabic Walarutan? Only 1, 2. Or how many of you can say that you know your kids know how to do our dances and sing our songs? Will it be bigger?
That's
or just 1, 2 maybe. And that just goes to show the issue with the disconnect again. When it's time for your kids to get married, are they going to know what to do? Or it's only you that knows what to do? When it's time to go to Heritage Days and we need people to dance for South Sudan, do your kids know how to do the dances? Or to sing the songs? Or to play the drums? Or to even greet people when you want them to bring Shah and the Saniya? Do they know how to greet them? And say, Ayana Tamam? Even Tamam Mafi these days. So we need to help bring Rutan back and our language back, and that leads to the next question. How can youth and community leaders collaborate in order to kind of bring that cultural heritage back to our community?
The ideas are coming as I talk, so I think the first step is probably to find out exactly what the disconnect is, because sometimes I feel like what you guys think is missing or different differs from what we think is missing or different. So I just feel like having conversations cannot be emphasized enough. And sometimes I think we think we're having these conversations but they become like one way. But if we have these conversations where it's like, we tell you this is how we feel, this is where we want to start, this is what we feel capable of, this is where we want to go from here, and then building on that, like it's gonna take some time, but at least that might be like a starting point.
For myself, I would say that I believe that everybody is capable of contributing when it comes to building a community, and not even that everyone is capable, but everybody has a role to play, a very important role. So I think that within our community, sometimes people can feel as though, kind of community, and I think that is a very, very destructive concept, because I think that when it comes to putting on an event like this, we heard the long list from our MC of all the different hands, which isn't even everyone, required to be able to bring an event like this to life, right? Annually, every single year. This has been happening for 9 years. So I think that when it comes to doing community events that would be able to help in this area, the benefit of us living in Canada is we don't have to, and also in 2024, we don't have to do things from scratch where we're racking our brains as to where do we start from. Like, there's other immigrant communities who are also living alongside us, the Chinese, the Ukrainians, all of these different people. They also came to Canada in the same different ways, but kind of similar to similar to what we did. So I think like being able to even start with when you look at yourself, what do I know how to do very well? For you might be that person in your family where, like I mentioned before, you know all of the stories. And I said, oh, they can for all these years, you'd be able to bring back that story that, oh yeah, I'm the kind of guy for Gudele, all these different things. You're that person, you know yourself, right? So if that's you, you're a storyteller, you have a very strong memory. We need you in the community. One day, let's just come, shy, like not all these things. We want to hear the story. What did you do as a child? What were some of the bad things that you did? Oh, mama and then you did this and that. We want to hear those stories, Or maybe if you're really good at like sports or something like that, even if it's not every single weekend, maybe something that you love is like being able to just teach kids how to, you're very patient. You could bring kids together to play soccer or something like that. Or you cook very well. Obviously, we know our aunties know how to do that very well, most of them. Maybe there's some uncles too. Secretly, you are also cooking at home, right? So maybe those are some of the skills. You could bring people together. You could rent one of the community halls here one day and teach everybody how to make even one dish. And as you're as you're teaching the things that you know how to do, that's where some of that knowledge comes out as well. So I think that a big part of it starts with what is one thing that you could give to the community, because it's not always money, right? There's the registration fees, of course you might pay to be a member of the community, but aside from that, a big contributor is your time and your skills. So if there's something that you know how to do very well, even if it's one time every year, if you could offer one workshop every year based on something that you know how to do, what would it be? And if you're like, oh, I'm not going to want to say easy place so the kids will not listen to me. No, there's opportunities for translation, there's opportunities to have somebody with you. So I think just like taking a look at that might be a good first step as well.
So yeah, I think we'll pivot a little bit in terms of, we kind of talk about the service level issues, and now we'll go a little bit deeper. What are some of the things that need to be addressed realistically and holistically that have been problematic in our community from older generations that have translated down to youth, and we've seen that impact, be it mental health, be it trauma, be it lack of understanding, whatever it is that have impacted the broader community in general?
I would say judgment and shame. I think Rose mentioned a bit about how if you have kids that are doing important work, it might be great to, as a parent, share that. But I think for some people, maybe what was going through your mind when you were hearing her share that idea was that, oh, if I share that idea with the community, then I'm proud, why am I putting my kid forward and stuff like that, all these kinds of things. So you know that your kid is doing those things, but you don't want to be seen as being, some type of person who's drawing attention to yourself. So I think that judgment and shame does translate into our community. We've talked about how with kids, sometimes you might also feel shame for a variety of reasons. So I think that aspect of genuinely being able to be proud of each other, be supportive of each other, and not just supportive in front of people's faces, oh, like all these kinds of things. But like after you leave the setting in front of the people, when you're calling somebody and they say, oh, you went for the program, how was it? And you're, oh, well, I feel like I can't. Instead, you can just, what are some of the positive things you can share, right? Like if you're going to be talking with people about how something went rather than gossip, what are some of the positive things? Oh, you know what? I saw that one sister, she was working so hard. The program wouldn't have been possible without her. Oh, that person's child was there. I haven't seen them in so long. They're doing very well. Like sharing positive news and encouraging each other. I think reducing that judgment and shame is like a big part of it. And I think that contributes to a lot of the challenges that we face is just fear of other people's judgment keeping us from moving forward. So.
100%, thank you. And I think it goes back to the point you said, people don't want to be proud of recognizing their children's accomplishments, but we have Olga here, and for your mom, you're not just a doctor for her, but she's a doctor for anyone. You can be going to her now, going for her.
I feel like you listed a lot of them in your question. I think one thing that I've been thinking a lot about is the lack of willingness to try to understand and change. There's a lot of I know best because I'm parent, or I know best because I'm older, I know best because, and you do know a lot, believe me, I completely agree with that. But sometimes it makes it very hard to move forward when there's the sense of stubbornness and unwillingness to even listen to our ideas or listen to what we're going through. She brought up mental health, refusing to acknowledge how mental health exists and impacts your children or the people in your life. And I think that if we maybe just shift that mindset, we don't expect you to completely change the way you are. We don't even want that, because a lot of the values that we have as South Sudanese and Equatorian are, dare I say, better than Canadian values. So we don't necessarily want a 180 complete switch, but it might be beneficial if it felt like you were willing to receive what we had to share. because sometimes it doesn't even feel like you're willing. So why would I speak up if I'm talking to a brick wall? Yeah, I think that's kind of it for me.
I think it's the traditional mindset. I know a lot of parents expect their kids to go to school, go to university, get a full-time job, and I think sometimes we have to deviate from that notion, because just because you go to school doesn't equal a great career or making a lot of money. It doesn't equal having many doors open for you. You don't just get a job dropped in your hand once you graduate from post-secondary. You actually have to work for it. You have to create connections with other people. So if your son or your daughter got a job in the trades, maybe they're a framer or they're building houses or they're a plumber, those are really great skills and really great careers that should be given encouragement and shined upon in the community. Or maybe even as simple as your kid is working at McDonald's and got a promotion there and became a manager. It's jobs like that that should be highlighted as well to provide encouragement. And I think the disconnect is just having this traditional mindset that they have to do this at a certain time. It's never like that. It's never too late to go back to school. It's never too late to change careers. So I think that's the disconnect there.
Thank you. And I guess this will be our last question before we turn to the audience if they have any questions for themselves. But how can we leverage, or how can role models within the community be identified to help inspire youth to do all the things that we just talked about, whether the role models are from the community leaders or the role models are just other youth themselves? So the first part of the question is, how can role models be identified to help inspire youth in the community, be as community leaders or be other youth?
Yeah, I would say that the being identified part is really tied to not being scared to share about yourself, right? You mentioned like tradespeople and everything, and even being a real estate agent yourself, where it's like, okay, if people don't know that you do that, oftentimes a big part of those types of trades is that you need to have clients. Well, look around in the room, how many people are here, right? Where it's just like everybody lives in some sort of home, right? So all of these types of things where I think that a big part of it is the relationship building. And you don't really realize when you're younger, because oftentimes you're making relationships based on your parents' relationships, but really being able to, I think, know the stories of, you're not just saying hi to auntie and uncle, or as a parent or an adult, you're not just talking to kids and just saying, oh, Anaya, auntie, you know, Munu, or whatever, you put your name there. But you kind of, even if the child isn't asking you questions about what you do for work or anything like that, you can be the one to initiate the conversation, and you can just ask the child where it's like, oh, what grade are you in? They'll tell you a bit about school. Even though that child is not asking you back that, oh, uncle, what do you do for work? You can also, you know, share with them and tell them that this is what I do. And even if you feel like maybe you're not proud of like the work that you do or something like that, you're not, you don't feel like you have a lot to share. I think even being able to just tell kids about, this is what my dreams were as a child. I was really interested in doing this for different reasons. Now I do this type of work. Sharing with kids about what kind of work you do, or maybe in your family, if there's people that do certain types of work. I think it's more so about lack of knowledge and like relationship building. So the more that they know, the more that they'll see that there's options. Like if you didn't know that Olga was a dentist, today you can, now you know, right? And it's kind of, yes. And I know you say that you're still in school and everything, but for us, right, it's like you're already there, right? So I think it's more about just knowing people's stories and not feeling scared to share, because I think partially too, we don't share because we're not done yet, right? So we feel like until I finish school, then I'll tell people that I'm a doctor or something like that. We're telling people that you're on the journey and not being scared that if you tell people, then they're, Gilba Oswit or something like that, they'll now come and scatter your plans and this kind of thing. Like, we should be a community where I can tell somebody that I'm only in first year, but I still have this ways to go, and then know that my community will help me get the rest of the way.
As she was talking, I was just thinking in terms of like identifying. To me anyways, I think that all of you guys are role models because we're constantly watching you guys and learning from you guys in your day-to-day as you're in the kitchen or you're setting up or you're what have you. And I think that aspect of we feel like we don't see representation, our community should be and is our representation. So when we get to have those conversations about people doing whatever in different fields and different jobs, that is where that kid will see that representation. If they had doubts and they have this random conversation with an uncle at an event and he tells them he's on a similar path or wanted to go and helps him, that's the representation that we feel is missing so much in our lives and that we don't get to see because realistically, you know, this society isn't really for us, but we get to see that representation in you guys. So it's really important that just like day to day you share because you're all role models, whether you're the one who's at the top of organizing or you see yourself as just a helper. It's never just a helper. I think you're underestimating the value that you bring just by existing and being willing to share your stories and your values with the youth around you.
Exactly. And just to add on top of that, I want to emphasize each and every single one of you guys are role models to us. Every single one of you. I want to share a story because even if you're working a labor-intensive job, maybe you're a healthcare aide, maybe you're a meat plant worker, maybe you work in those very hard jobs. My first job in high school, I got because of my auntie. I think Auntie Flora is over there. She was a healthcare aide at a long-term care facility. And I worked there as a food service worker. And maybe she didn't want me to have that job, but because I started there, I got my first professional job in an office because she gave me that opportunity, right? So even if you think that this is a job that you don't want your kids to be in, introducing them to the job or to maybe your manager will open doors for them. It's just those little connections and relationship building that Vivian had mentioned. So you guys are all role models in each and every way, so please share, please connect us with who you work with, people that you know, and that will bridge the gap.
Thank you so much, ladies. So I think that wraps up the formal part of the panel and the roundtable talk. So now I guess we'll turn it to the audience and all of you who attended today. If there are any questions for any of the three ladies here now.
My name is William Ochin from Vancouver. As a parent, I have to express that we are really honored and proud of you, our kids, now educating us like this. There is no much thing that we as parents need. We want to see you succeed and go higher than this. Now the question that I have is the question of sustainability. Can our communities get sustained by girls only? Because when you look around here, we don't see our sons around here. So when we go to graduation parties, we see most of our beautiful girls graduating from different fields, but barely we see the boys. So my question is to these beautiful and smart girls, what can we do to bring your brothers to be able to sit with you there, to be able to celebrate maybe in future our marriage among ourselves as Equatorians and as South Sudanese? Thank you.
So I'll say that's a very amazing question, and also thank you for traveling all the way from Vancouver. It's nice to know that there's South Sudanese people in BC. But yeah, I'll turn it to you ladies. So what can we do to...
Okay, I have 6 brothers, so I think for me, you guys let me know if this applies. The way we are raised and the expectations at home might be contributing to this. From the get-go, I was taking care of my older brothers. the expectations of me to be organized and committed and taking care of things and knowing what's going on, but my brother who's 5-6 years older than me doesn't have that same responsibility, probably contributed to me being self-motivated. I have three younger brothers that I joke and say they're my kids because I spend so much time with them. And me and my siblings are kind of divided into the 5 older and then me and my 3 younger brothers. And I have made it such a point to raise my brothers to, I guess, be traditionally speaking more like me. I try to push them to be organized. I always check in on them. What are you doing in school? What's your plan? What's this? What's that? Do you need advice? Do you need help? What are you doing with this? Why would you do that? That's about it all the time. And I think that now as I see my brothers, I feel very proud of them. They have plans for the future. They're in university. They are thinking, I'm going to use sports to get a scholarship to go to university, do something good. And I think that we can change the way that we are raising our sons at home and stop giving them so much slack and maybe instill the same values that you instill in your daughters, and that might help bring them with us.
I 100% echo what you said, and I think that from listening to the boys in our community, of which there are many successful young men in our community, might I add, not all of them are here, there are some of them here, and I would recommend that you talk to them. They're sitting in an interesting space in the back of the room. I'm going to put them on the spot. Turn around, they're over there. I'll put them on the spot. I feel like, we're not the best people to necessarily answer. Talk to them directly, and I think that's a big thing too, where what are the challenges that they're experiencing when it comes to being able to be part of the community. I would say that maybe speaking on some of their behalves is when it comes to leadership succession and governance within an organization such as ESSCA, oftentimes what can happen is a power struggle. So you might like to see youth come into the organization and take up leadership, but when those youth start to have ideas that you don't like, then it becomes very challenging because, right? It's just like, oh, this is and all these kinds of things, right? But although as a community we might see youth to be anybody who is not married, you're considered a youth, and all of that kind of stuff. Whereas within our society, adults are, you're 18, you're considered an adult, and your ideas are meant to matter at that level, right? So I think within our governance structure, being able to recognize that, yes, we do value mentorship, so of course we want to learn from you and learn from your experiences, but I think that being able to shift the reins where we don't want to wait until people are really struggling as leaders, and then you're desperately looking for somebody to come and take over in the office. You want to be able to mentor people so then they can learn about what's happening in the community, share their ideas, and then be able to have that voice within our organization as well. So I think that's also a big challenge, is that we might not be seeing young men within our leadership and like up here is because perhaps they don't feel as though they're able to share their ideas and their struggles openly without being shamed as well. And I think a big separate conversation that we'll probably talk about this weekend as well is also the impact of outside influences, drugs, alcohol, gangs, all these different types of things. When it comes to the difference between young girls and young men growing up here in Canada, I would say that because maybe you're forced to stay home and take care of your younger brothers and all these kinds of things, you're not outside as much as your male counterparts. So their influence to be part of a lot of the things that are happening is a lot at a higher rate than I would say for girls. So their experiences differ a lot for sure.
Intentionality and being aware of what parenting in Canadian society also looks like, which is very different than back home. You had a really great point where your first job was, how old were you? Do you remember?
16.
Yeah, so when you're 16 and you're working, you don't have time to really get into trouble, and you're learning things like responsibility, financial management, being on time, and a lot of those things. And it goes back to the point of how community members like yourselves can help with their youth. A boy that's 13, that's working, maybe a part-time job, maybe he's understanding his values are different than those of his friends that maybe are not working, that have time to be out at all hours of the day, that don't have their own money to spend. So now they're going to look at maybe legal or illicit ways of getting money to spend because that's an important thing. So I think looking holistically at the ways that we can raise children, starting from young as 3, 4, 5, like Olga was saying, really changes the trajectory of the way, you know, boys and girls have grown up differently. So I think those are very amazing points, and I hope that answers your question, at least in a little bit. Thank you. And I know we had another hand up as well for a question.
Thank you, ladies. Good afternoon. My name is Lord. My question is preceded by a statement. I've been in Canada 26 years. I only knew about stress 6 years ago when I was medically diagnosed. This was specific to the mental health lady who is, I would say, the expert over there. How do you identify stress before it becomes a medical situation, particularly with our elderly who have come from tough situations that the sentiment is toughening up, that we're going to be tough and working out. So how do you identify, or what are some of the contributing factors that might have led into people in our community actually struggle with mental health, but do not understand their actual struggle with mental health? Thank you.
Psychology, so this topic kind of resonates with a lot of what I do, and I see a lot of clients as well that suffer from stress and many other things. I think our community has a very specific and unique background where many people are operating very stressed, very traumatized, but on autopilot. You can look at the face of our South Sudanese people and you would think everything is okay, but for us, things are, and you know, you can feel it for yourself too. And that's just how we have been trained to live and to survive here in Canada. You can be working 2, 3 jobs, raising 5 to 6 kids on the outside looking, and you would think everything is okay, but it's not okay. And we have to realize that it's okay for people to not be okay, to be stressed out, to be traumatized. It doesn't mean, yeah, there's all the mujrim class, the rasto fat class, and that goes back to the judgment that we always have for our community. To identify stress, you would feel it when you know that maybe you're having anxieties, you know that your body's not doing things the way that it should be, you know how you feel when you're healthy, and you know how you feel when you're not. So I think identifying stress for us is not necessarily the issue, but what do we do about it? Anyone here, do you know where to go when you're feeling stressed out? Do you know who to talk to? What are your fears surrounding that? So I think a big part of community events like this, again, is the education around mental health and what that looks like. Again, first, understanding that it doesn't mean because you're stressed, because you're anxious, because maybe you have depression, which is very real. Again, if your kids are telling you that, it's very real. It doesn't mean that this person is crazy. It doesn't mean that this person is forsaken. It doesn't even mean necessarily that there's anything wrong with you as a person, but rather your situation. So I think identifying stress within our community is, again, recognizing a lot of us have come from very, very, very difficult backgrounds. If you were to tell the average person, maybe even the average college graduate, your story of where you came from, how many of them, their jobs would just drop? What we went through is not normal, and I think recognizing that is the first step in terms of identifying how we can get help. And help doesn't always have to look like what this society tells us it looks like. Therapy is great, but it doesn't mean you have to do that. Seeing a doctor is also great, you know, in extreme circumstances, but it doesn't mean you also have to do that. Back home, when you think about a lot of the things that you were doing for your mental health, what was it? It was maybe sitting down, drinking chai, the community events where you're dancing and you're singing that they're still doing back home right now, because are there psychologists back home? Maybe, maybe not. Is there therapy back home? Maybe, maybe not. But people are still doing things to protect their mental health. So I think incorporating that in what we are doing today can also help with alleviating those symptoms of stress. But first step is definitely recognizing that we're not as healed as we think we are. There's a lot of unresolved trauma, unresolved anxiety, unresolved experiences from where we all came from, and that is okay.
I'm just going to add from a biology standpoint, because that's my background. You feel stress in your body, but as she was talking about the autopilot, so many of us, including myself, have been so stressed out for so long that our bodies are operating at these high levels of stress hormones that we don't recognize it until we get more stress. So now you have too much of that hormone and it becomes medical, or we feel some instance of relaxation. So I think from more of a biology standpoint, I invite you guys to try to tune into how your actual physical body feels day to day. Take 5 minutes at the end of the day. How do I feel? Are my muscles tense? Do I feel like I can take a deep breath in right now? If you can't, you're probably stressed, because you should be able to inhale all the way and exhale. When you're with your community like this, I know when I'm around people and my friends, I feel re-energized, I feel less stressed. Taking a second to pay attention. Do I feel different right now around these people when I feel happier than when I'm alone, or when I'm studying, or when I'm at home? When you start to pay attention to yourself and value your body in that sense, you'll start to recognize the signs of stress for sure. I hope that helps a little bit.
I think everybody have questions to ask. For the interest of time though, I am gonna limit to two other questions, and then I will let, I have a lady here and another gentleman behind. And so we'll let them ask you questions, and then we just move on. I am gonna encourage everybody though, at the end of the day today, if you do have a break, please interact with these ladies, and they will be happy to answer your questions. Whether in front of the camera, or if you want to record it as well, I think they will give you consent, and you can do that. So for the interest of time, I'm going to allow 2 questions.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Isgana Abaro, and I came all the way from Australia.
Woo! Welcome.
First of all, I would like to acknowledge you girls. I'm very, very proud of your achievement. And I wish there was a boy there, like Oching said before. Hopefully next time. So my question to you is that there are a lot of youth out there who are struggling, who have disconnected from other youth. How can you guys help them to become successful like you guys? Thank you.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I think that question is the basis of SSYC and the base, like the South Sudanese Youth of Canada, and why we decided to come together. It's hard because there's a balance between trying to help someone and them wanting to help themselves. So really there's only so much we can do. But I know when we were at our peak before COVID with SSYC, when we were having, we started to do community development events. So in different cities we have like game nights, and we help people register for university and all that fun stuff. I started seeing people that I had not seen in forever. So it was pulling people out of that disconnect. So realistically, the first step is just to have spaces where we can gather so that we can help our counterparts and our Equatorian friends reconnect with their culture, reconnect with their other Equatorian friends. But that requires a lot of assembling, that requires a lot of resources, a lot of manpower. Not to say that we're not willing to do it, I mean, we've done it before, we do it again. And then of course, on the other end, it's the encouragement and actual judgment-free encouragement from your parents to push their children towards these spaces so that they can start to pull themselves out of that disconnect. But all that to say, I don't really know that there's a black or white answer there. Like it's very shade of gray. The best we can do is try and hope that people want to reconnect with themselves and their culture. Okay. I'm going to answer your question.
I think to add to what she said is that we can't do it by ourselves. What we do as youth needs to be supplemented by what the parents are also doing, what the community is also doing, and a cord that has 3 strands is stronger than just one. So what we do on our end as youth, if it's just us, can be easily broken and we can lose other youth again. Versus if we know maybe we've identified a youth that we want to help support, and now there's community events that we can bring them to help engage them, and then we know that the parents at home are also supporting. This youth has a way better chance of success than if it was just us that was supporting them. So like she mentioned, back when we had community development events, we're seeing people that we haven't seen since we were playing in people's backyards when we were kids. Now people are in high school and university, and it also feels good to really be around your community members I know in university you look around, some people like, you know, the Nigerians and the Congolese and whoever else, and you see how are these people, how do they get to be with their community? How do they know how to speak their language and do their dance? And we're looking at each other like, yeah, there's nothing here that we have, and that makes us want to stay away from our culture, because there's also a source of shame of not wanting to be reminded that we don't have anything, that we don't know anything. So I think also making it fun to engage the youth in events as well. There's an incentive there. They know at least if they come here, they're going to have fun, and then they can further engage in other things. So I think it needs to be, everyone has to be involved. Can't just be the youth. It also now realistically can't just be the parents. The community needs to be involved too very much, and youth are an investment in the future. So if you're thinking, oh, I'm tired, or there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of money, this is an investment for how our community is going to turn out, because you won't all be here forever, and when it's just us left, we need to have these skills, we need to have this knowledge in order to make sure that our community sustains itself. So,
thank you very much. My name is Moses Dada. I'm from Calgary. I'm so proud of you girls. It is the first time that I've seen our girls sitting in front of us trying to tell us what to do as the parents. And today I have a simple question. One of you said before that we are left with maybe a few years. We'll be leaving our kids behind. Today, from our point of view as parents, I would like to know, or I would like to have advice from you. How are we going to bridge the gap between our young ones or the youth with the parents? Because I've seen some of the parents work different shifts. They don't have enough time to stay in the house or share the same lunch or dinner with their kids. How will they be able to pass all their cultures or information about their family trees to their children? I would like you to advise us better. Thank you very much.
I think to answer your question is, there doesn't need to be a specific time of the day where you have to sit down with your kids to share that knowledge about your culture. I understand that many of us work 2 to 3 jobs. I myself work multiple jobs as a business owner, but I think if you take initiative where you know maybe you see them for 10 minutes a day and really valuing that time to really talk to your child within that 10 minutes, it's just the willingness and the initiative that you have as a parent to do so. If you want to do it, you will make it happen no matter what, right? There are 24 hours in a day. There's no way you will not see your children in 24 hours unless you don't want to see them, right? Some of them are at home playing video games. You can easily interrupt that video game because you just want to spend time with them. It may be annoying at first, but I think in the long run, if you keep taking the time, whatever it is, whether it's stopping them while they're playing a video game, when they wake up, just talking to them, they will remember that down the road.
Yeah, I would also say that I think I definitely hear what you're saying about like the different shifts and all of that for sure. I think that oftentimes like we feel like it can be very difficult at first, like what you're sharing, Rose. When we have time to be able to call, we can calculate the time difference between here and South Sudan, and we can talk to our family members back home. But then the people that we're in the same house with, you don't even know, you just know that because there's dishes in the sink, somebody ate that day, but you know, like there's that kind of disconnect. It does take a lot of intentional effort to say that, you know, you're not only going to just ask, how are you, and I'm fine, and then you take that as that, like ask more questions, right? And I think that can be difficult, especially if you feel like they don't want to talk to me, so why should I try? Why should you? I think knowing the why can very much help, because it can be like, well, they're always on their phone. There's so many reasons, right? Barriers, and oftentimes it can actually be excuses, right? Because it's difficult. It's not easy when here people are so distracted. Ourselves we're distracted. Parents are distracted for good reason. You need to run a household. You need to work and make money. But I think that aspect of definitely making it a priority and saying that if you're wondering why you should do those hard things of starting a conversation with somebody who they can't even, they're just looking at their phone like this, the why is exactly what you described, because we don't want our culture to be lost, because you love your kids, because you love your family, right? If that is not enough reason for you you every day, even if they don't respond. How are you? Oh, that friend, Filande, that you had long ago, where are they? How are they doing? Show that interest in what their lives are. Eventually, things will start to build. And if you feel like, well, we've been doing our life like this for so long, how are we going to change it now? Because the fact that you still have breath in your lungs, you're still alive today, you still have your kids around, even if they're not living at home, there's still an opportunity to continue to try, right? And I know that for friends of mine who have unfortunately lost their parents, or for some of them, their parents have moved back home, right? You think about those days where you wish that you had even just one-word conversation with your parents, because you would ask them for so much advice, or you would just want to spend time with them, right? So I think just knowing that because you have today is a good time to start. It's better than yesterday, right? So I think just being able to start from that.
I'm going to tell a very quick story, then we can wrap this up, just to kind of make it more concrete. My older brother speaks Arabic really well. He came here when he was young too, so I don't really have an excuse, but he only speaks that with my parents. And he always tells us it's because he started playing football when he was 8 years old, and my dad used to drive him to football practice, and my dad used every car ride to speak Arabic to him and keep teaching him. He would play music in Bari only, and my dad was in school and working at the same time, and my dad used that opportunity to keep that culture alive in his child. And that's just an example of like, it can be at any time. It doesn't have to be when you sit down and eat. It can be in passing, it can be when you come home from work. It can be whenever. It will happen though, if you want it to.
Amazing. I think that ends up our panel. So I just want to say thank you to the organizers for having us. And lastly, just to say, what we've shared, you call us here, we're sharing. We're hoping that someone here, whether it's the organizers, whether it's one of the parents, you'll hold on to at least one thing that we've said and can help make that change. So that next year's ESSCA conference, you'll see my best Araba video, but maybe Mia youth here. Mia Shabbat, I remember that here. So really hope that we have the opportunity to at least share with you something that was part of our truth that you'll be able to take. And thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to share on behalf of myself, Olga, Bibia, and Rose. We really appreciate it, and we hope you have an enjoyable rest of the day. I know there's an amazing program prepared for you all. So again, shukran, jazilan.
Our future is bright.
Communication is the key. Regardless of how, I know as parents, we came from different backgrounds. We faced a lot of traumas in our lives when we were younger, right? And our past is not as ideal as anybody else. But that is who we are. And when you feel that your child is in that age where they understand that, you need to share it with your child. Because at the end of the day, that is your story you're passing on to your child, regardless of how difficult it is, and then that's where the empathy comes in play, to know, okay, this is where my mom came from, and this is not where I want to be. I want to be way here, and I want to do better than where my mom came from, or where my dad came from. So I think it is really important for us to share our stories with our kids, and just to give them the empowerment. You don't have to give with some details, but you have to modify that story to make sure that they understand, based on their level of understanding. So I think it is really important. And for those who are going to counseling, or those who does counseling, some of the things that people go there to do, they talk. When you go to counseling, you go talk to somebody who is paid to listen to your story, and that should make you feel better. And I feel like when you talk to your kids, when they're in that age where they're capable to understand, when you talk to them, I think that is also part of the therapy, for ourselves as well, for us to be better. So for the next session, we are going to have, it looks like we started from the youth, and now we're going to the adults. We're going to go with adults and education, and the importance of that as well. Some of us who came here as grown-ups with very little education, and then we decide just to gather specific mahala and halas, we're comfortable. I think it is really important that we push ourselves. You know, in this country we have all these opportunities where we can further ourselves and our education. We need to take that and we need to run with it. You know, and we just need to empower each other with that. And for the next session, I am going to call Dr. John Rubena to he's the one going to be moderating the next session. And so, Dr. John Rubena, please, you're welcome.
First of all, thank you very much, Police, for this opportunity here. I think we are moving on with our sessions. We have a lot of sessions, and unfortunately, hopefully the time will allow us to cover as much as we can. But this particular session is going to be very specific to already being mentioned by the MC on adult education. But before we do that, maybe if I can take just 1 minute of your time. We have been sitting for a long time. Can you just breathe a little bit, stretch? Just for a minute maximum. All right. I think I'm doing good here. Hopefully you're doing good too as well. All right, we can sit down. Thank you. And before I jump into this this session, I would just like us one more time to give a round of applause to our young ladies who have come here and demonstrated and shared with us wonderful news about them to us, the elders. And I would just like to reiterate one word that was said by one of them, Kalamde Hagigi. Kalamde Hagigi. All right, this session is going to be hopefully in a time slot of about 35 minutes before we branch into our breaks. And this is going to be around adult education. So for some of you who don't know me, I'm actually just moderating, but my name is John Rubena, and I go by different titles. But otherwise, I'm also a community member here in Edmonton. I live in Edmonton. All of the time I've been here in Edmonton. Sometimes I travel to the west a little bit, but I've been only a couple of times to the east, so I am very, very ignorant about Eastern Canada. But at the same time, it's wonderful to see everybody from different jurisdictions of the country, and this is what Equatoria is. So this session is really going to talk about adult education, and we will have a speaker here with us today. He is also visiting from outside the province. I will give a little bit bio about him, but the topic will be focused on shaping a future of success for Equatorian men and women in Canada. All right? And the objective of this session is to raise awareness about opportunities for adult education and training, and also to highlight the importance of embracing a lifelong learning at all stages of life, and also to highlight and address some of the challenges of being an adult student. This is all going to be shared by our speaker who is coming, and also we will highlight the path to access adult education in Canada, navigating the access as well to the right adult education and training of options for you. So I think these kinds of conferences bring us together because we tend to learn things. Just like the youth have educated us, the parents, also there are other aspects of our lives and areas that needs to be shared here so that we can learn a thing or two by those who are knowledgeable in the field. So my next speaker is Mr. Joseph Modi, and he is a father of 5 children, and 3 stepchildren, married for over 10 years to Isabella Abalo, an IT professional working in the public sector for over 16 years. He was in the education sector for several years. Most of you know him. He goes by the name Ustaz Mila. Some of you who know have been colleague with him back in the days. He's called Ustaz Mila. He is passionate, or he has passionate about the success of Equatorians in general and in particular here in Canada. And some of his hobbies, he likes to play chess and Scrabbles. By default, being a teacher, I guess those are the trends that comes with the discipline. So, without wasting time, I would like to welcome our brother, Mr. Joseph Miller, to the podium to come and present for us on this topic. Thank you.
I like to wonder when I'm talking, so I will not be stuck on the podium, so don't worry. I'll even move all the way to the back. So we're just hooking up my laptop so that I can see a visual of what I prepared, and I can speak to that. But before I speak, I'm so happy to be here. Equatorial Hadid. Together we stand. Together we stand. Equatorial Hadid. That's it. So this is a little challenging for us, what I'm going to speak about. It can be touching for some of you, or me, myself, but let's just walk this together. It's a little difficult. Sometimes I may be challenging you. I'll also be challenging myself, but please take it as it is. And this is especially for the adults, but there'll be a segment where the youth can pick from a little bit of that. But I'm hoping that in the future, I'll have an opportunity to be able to speak to the youth about the same. But this is specifically for the adults. So started education, so pre-secondary school. And some of us completed secondary school, some of us completed post-secondary school. So it is completely difficult to speak to everybody at the same level. The most important thing is we're in a country that has opportunities, and that's what we're going to be talking about. Money can sometimes be challenging, but looks like it's working. So that's what I was talking about. When we come to Canada, there's what we call the link. It's the first thing that they will greet us with. They don't care if you've completed university before you came here. They'll try to introduce you to learn English. There are some times when we have to say no. This is not what I have to start with. But the question is, how do you really say no to a white person? That is the most difficult thing that most of us go through when we come to this country, because, okay, do ESL. And sometimes, okay, that ESL is like, oh no, this is what I was teaching, and I have to go through this. You can say no to these things. But of course, they know better that they have free money to do this. This is funded by Immigration Canada. So they feel like they are doing their job. But no, we have opportunities to say no. When I came, I said no. I am not a ESL person. So what did I do different? That's what I'm going to be talking about. Of course, when you land, when you're 18 years old and above, they consider you to be somebody who has to learn English, or somebody who is matured. So I'm not going to read through all that. But the good thing about learning this English is really free all over Canada. I'm sure this is the same in all the provinces. I'm going to be speaking from the experience of Ontario. I know more about Ontario than most of the other provinces, but I'm going to try to be as balanced as possible. So since this daycare, we find that it's very easy for both men and women to access English as a second language. And they really do a good job. So mostly when we go to the link, they only teach us English. When I say us, I mean all of us. So let me use the word us. There will be mostly 4 levels that you have to go through. And they will just be teaching you English and conversation, and they'll teach you real life things. For instance, how do you, when you call 911, how do you talk to them, what do you do? If you go to the bank, how do you talk to them? These are the conversations that you find in those classes. And this is, like I said, funded. And after you finish all those 4 levels, you have an opportunity to move on. I'll come to this in a moment. You have opportunities to move on, and that's when you move on to do academic upgrading. In Ontario, you're allowed to do academic upgrading by moving on to the college, and again at the college, you get levels. The 4 levels that people start with, these are like self-paced. If you're really good in English, they'll push you. They don't want you in their class because they have people who have to go through alphabets, people have to struggle, people cannot write, so they'll push you to move on. So when you get to the college, you also have modules that you have to go through, there are books that you have to go through, and again, it's all self-paced. The other thing is that there is this GED. So the GED is the equivalent of the high school thing, and sometimes it can be really boring, and I'll be honest. We do math better than this country, maybe English. But for math, I can bet on that. We are better. So please, be proud of that. But English could be the only thing that probably we may be struggling with. So they cannot beat me in math. I know that. Okay. So of course, like I said, it's really very flexible. And with the GED, you have access to math, sciences, and of course, English is like the big thing in this country. So, the GED, of course, is going away. This summer, they are going to be introducing what they call the Canadian Adult Education Credential. That's going to be the new GED. So, that is what we're going to be getting. It's still the same GED. The only thing is that they're really changing the name. So, like I said earlier, when you get the academic upgrading, it's offered at college. To begin with, you get math and English. 4 levels of that. When you finish those 4 levels, then you can add in biology or chemistry and physics. That is, they're moving you into the science stream, or you can do the art stream. And then when you finish those ones, you can apply now to the college. Now the other thing is, this is the other stream, and this was my stream. When I came to this country, when you have a gap of 2 or more years, you're automatically considered to be a mature student if you are not going to go through the other link thing. So when you are a mature student, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you have transcripts, if you have a degree, they don't care about that. They want you to do a test, a mature student test. And to be honest, it can be it's a little challenging just probably because of the English thing, but the math thing, again, like I said, we are really good at that. So I had to do that. So after passing that, then they allowed me to enroll to a program of choice. But if you fail that program, then you have the option to do either pre-sciences or pre-arts. Those options will take you straight to what you need to do. Again, they are really thorough. They give you a lot of learning. Again, they are all self-paced. They'll give you booklets, and then you go through those booklets, and as soon as you finish a booklet, you get another one, you just keep going. Again, it can be frustrating. But the other thing, good thing again, these programs are free. You don't pay for them. The Canadian government, they fund them. Again, also you get daycare when you're going through these programs. That's a good thing. All right. So, assuming that I go through all these programs, I am going to just be a little biased. I'm going to just let me go through the health industry here. And I find that it is very easy for us, and also like for both men and women, to be able to become PSWs. Reason is, it takes only about what, 6 months? It's really like less than 2 semesters to be a PSW. And they make it so easy for everybody who is in the program to be able to pass. So, The other thing, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I know that I have traveled a little bit. I've been here in Canada and I've also been to Australia a lot. And I can guarantee you that over 50% of the adults who came into this country, or about 50%, they are PSWs or they are working with disabilities. Now the question for us is that the end of our journey? Is that where you want to end? Is that where we want to end as PSWs or working with disabilities? We have opportunities. One of the reasons why we tend to just end there is because we are scared. We are afraid that we will not succeed. But that's not true. It's never true. When we came to this country, we had already gone through a ton of problems. We are able to succeed to get those certificates. Like in Australia, they call them certificate 1, certificate 2, certificate 3. And here in Canada, it's just like a certificate, a single certificate that you do in about 6 to 8 months to become to be a PSW. If you can do those ones and pass those exams, do you think you have a chance to do something else? You do. The only thing is, again, like I said, we are scared. Okay, now let's think about the practical nurse. That's what they call it in Canada, but in other places they call it different. So definitely a practical nurse is somebody who is really not a full nurse, not a registered nurse. In my opinion, and I may be wrong, the only challenging thing in being a practical nurse is really studying anatomy and physiology. All that, you agree? Yeah. So, if you can learn all the 103 bonds, I think there are 103 bonds. If you can remember and you can memorize them, you're done. We are very good at memory. Baccarat, right? I remember those days. Those were hilarious days. People used to make those little tiny handwritten things that some people use for cheating in the exam, but some people, they use them for studying. So if you can just write those bonds into those, like 103 of them, if you can remember all those 3 bonds, you are done with anatomy. The only thing that you have to worry about is physiology. But you're walking and you're doing stuff. What is physiology anyways? We have done better than physiology. So I am trying to say here that don't be intimidated to move on. You can do it. We can do it. If you can become a personal support worker, you are helping people. You are in the health industry. Everybody is looking up to you. All the old folks, they respect you. Everybody respects you. Canada respects you. Move on. Help you. I'm sure they'll help you. If you have any problems, one of the biggest problems that I learned as I continued to advance my career was terminology, and I believe everybody agrees. Every time I moved on, I get new terminology in my industry. Even when I was studying. And when I came to Canada, I was not only studying, but I was also trying to find out what does this terminology mean. But these other kids in the class, they knew it. Because this is like an everyday thing. Just like our Arabic, we don't need to define things, we know that, right? So you will struggle with terminology. Don't worry about that. The internet is there for you. Everybody has internet in the house. We have all these phones that we cannot put down. If there's anything that we don't use, it's our phone. So use that phone to study. That's your dictionary. And I still believe that this can help us if we have any problems. The only thing is sometimes we're too proud that we don't have from our kids, but they're smart. And the only thing is sometimes they can be sarcastic too, they don't want to help us. They feel that you know what, you're on your own. But if they throw you to be on your own, you know what, just do it. The one thing that I really want to, okay, then if you become a practical nurse, what stops you from being a nurse anyways? You're already there. So it's just probably 1 more year. So I come from Thunder Bay, Ontario. When you go to the Confederation College, you do 2 years to be a practical nurse. You bridge to the university and then do another 2 years to be a nurse. And you can do that one. The one reason really why I emphasize that people should move on from being personal support workers is, the job is very demanding. It's really heavy. How long can you do it? Yeah, so it's really very, very heavy. Sometimes it needs two people to do a single person job. So it's a job that it has to be for anywhere between 15 to 20 years. It does affect you a lot. I have seen people who have problems. You know what? It's too much. A little bit too much. So let's try to transition from being PSWs to something else. Yeah, we can do it. I mean, I'm challenging anybody who is doing the job, or if you know people who are doing it, let's move on. And of course, that's what they do. Mostly we have older folks with different things. There is no shortage to apply for that job. Everybody is open. And this is a screenshot that I took maybe around 24 hours. All the colleges are open for PSWs. There is a huge demand. The problem is, there's a huge demand, but do they pay well? Not in Canada. They don't pay well in Canada. The only reason why people stick in there is we get a lot of overtime. People work overtime to be able to get more money in the industry. How about that? Then our kids are like, okay, I don't know where my parent is. They are not even home. Kids will not eat that, or they go out and eat junk food and then become taller than us anyways. So, if you do a search, there will be at least over 100 jobs for PSWs. But again, really low wages and the workload, it's a little over the head. They are on their feet the whole time. It's so rare to find them sitting down, except for their lunches. When they get the lunch time, okay, this is it, I want this one. That's where they work. I'm not going to talk about that. All right, so Canada has been doing this, and it will continue to do this because of the demand. They feel like we don't have enough manpower. So Canada opens it up. They want people to come from other countries to be able to do the same job, the job of the PSWs. People have been coming here to do PSW. Nurses have been coming from other. So this program was open, and this other one on the bottom there, the home child care provider, I don't think it just closed June the 17th, but the other one on the top is still open. So people can apply from outside Canada to come and do the same. All right. The other challenge that we can find, and this one, I'm sure many parents they know, these academic advisors, either if they are in schools or at the college or in the university, I'm sorry, they are not good. Some of them are really good, but some of them, sorry about that, they are not good. They will navigate you to go to train yourself, they don't care. But again, if you know what you want to do, you stand your ground. They will advise you to do things that they feel they are really easy for you, but no, we are already strong, we can do anything that we want. So steer them away from what they're trying to tell you to do. And I mean, some of our kids, they get frustrated in schools because the academic advisors, they are trying to have them choose courses that are not relevant to what probably they want. And I'm sure a lot of kids will relate to this one. It's a struggle in schools, in colleges and universities. These academic advisors, I love them, they're getting their money, but sometimes we have to say no. Having spoken about that, let me, by show of hands, how many people have houses? How many people either own a house or they are paying a mortgage to pay off a house? Oh, I know it's better than that. Let me try again. How many people have a house or they have a mortgage to pay a house? I know it's better than that. Okay. All right. So, how many of you who own houses do your electrical? How many of you who own your houses do your plumbing? How many of you who own your houses do the flooring? How many of you who own your houses do the roofing? Okay. All right. That's So having spoken about the health industry, I would like to move on a little bit to trades. I'm just going to go a little bit rough around the trades, but I'm going to just concentrate on one trade, and I'm going to just drill into that trade, one single trade, because we don't have a lot of time to talk about all these trades. And that was my next slide there. So all these trades, like the industrial electrician, the mechanic, the welder, the hammer, the heavy equipment, the plumber, fabricator, interior finishing, all these are trades. One common thing about these trades, some of them have some education, but most of them are really certificates. They can be some diplomas that you can get out of these trades, but most of them are certificates. But a lot of them, you don't need to have formal education to get into these trades. No formal education is required to get into these formal trades. So, they can be very interesting. That looks like good money to me. So, that is what they earn. But again, think about it. You really don't need formal education to get into this. Yeah, I'm going to get into that. So this is what an electrician does. Like all this wiring in this house, it can be a little challenging. Sometimes we have one switch that flips and like turns lights on this side, and I'll turns on lights on the other side. You can dim your lights, you can do this. They can do a lot of things. And those mechanics, they control everything in the industry. The welder, we don't see a lot of welding, but they do a lot of connecting metals. And that is mostly in the industry. Oh, this one, we do see a lot of this one. Like, if the AC is not running, you're gonna be running to these people, and your fridge is not working, you need these people. And then the heavy equipment operators, the plumber, of course, this is our friend. So, I know it's very difficult to do this one. And a lot of people, they will have a plumber's number handy because it's going to happen. Then of course the welders, fabricator and the welder, these are kind of like interchangeable, but a little different. All right, I'm going to talk about an electrician, but a little bit deeper on how to become an electrician. I am not an electrician myself, but I know a little bit about that. So you need to be at least 18 years. You need to be at least 18 years old. All you need is just a high school diploma. And definitely you need to have good math, physics, and English skills. So this is how an electrician is educated. If you have a diploma in electricity or electronics, it's a bonus. It's really, really good. Now the question is, to be an electrician, you need to be regulated. So, for instance, in Alberta, there is that local, the 424, but they have to go through the International Brothers of Electrical Workers. So, the International Brothers of Electrical Workers, they regulate it. So, what everybody wants to become an electrician does is, they have to apply to that local in Alberta. They will have to write an aptitude, kind of like an aptitude test. It's like a math and English test. So after they pass that test, then they get an interview. You get an interview with some electricians. They will drill you down a little bit. But is it really that easy to be able to get that interview? Not in this country. In this country, you need to know Susie, you need to know John, you need to know this other person to be able to have access to these things. This is the only difficulty that we may be facing. So let me just use a story of somebody I knew. this person studied electronics and some of his friends they are now apprentices, they are just doing electricals. So he's like, I really need to do this, what should I do? Then a friend was like, okay, I know an electrician, I have access to this person. So then this guy is like, okay, I have time, I can work with this electrician. So he gets hooked up with this electrician, and this electrician recommends him to the local, to the union. And then he goes to the union, then they call him for an interview. And then, okay, so after passing this interview and then the test, they will now take you in for 3 to 6 months as an apprentice without pay. So then you have those 4 to 6 months without pay. And then after you complete that, this other electrician who had recommended you, hopefully he's willing to take you in as an apprentice. And then you start to apprentice with this electrician. But as soon as you start to apprentice with this electrician, then there is formal education that you need to take as an electrician who is doing the apprentice. They will send you to a specific college. There are colleges that are affiliated with this. You go to these colleges and study electricity. You do it in bits. You go for a year and come back and work. You go for another year and come. It takes up between 4 to 6 years to finish done. And this is what I'm talking about. So after that, as you continue to work, you log everything that you do. You have a logbook and then you write all the tasks that you're doing. And after that, then you need to obtain a license. Of course, your logbook will have to help you to be able to justify that you have been doing that. And of course, I did mention about what they do, and all these are the duties that they do. Then, after becoming an electrician, you are an electrician in Alberta. Ontario doesn't care about you being an electrician in Alberta. There is a bridge that you have to do. If you want to work in Ontario as an electrician, if you are already registered in Alberta, you need to take this other test. They call it the Red Seal endorsement. This one is for all the trades. All the trades will be able to do this Red Seal endorsement. So every trade that you go through, after you become certified in one province, you need to take this to be certified in another province. I don't know about real estate, Rose will tell us. All I know is that lawyers in Ontario will never do real estate in Manitoba and vice versa. They don't cross borders. Real estates are the same. The only thing that will cross is the banks. If you need to buy a house in Ontario from here, the banks will give you the money. But you have to find a lawyer in Ontario and probably find a realtor in Ontario also to help you with that. All right, that formally ends what I wanted to talk about. Let me just go back and again summarize it a bit. I go back to that point where I said, don't be afraid. Most of the time, we just fail because we have not tried. We can do it. You can raise kids, you can cook for them, you can do everything. You can challenge them. And you think you cannot challenge yourself, you can too. So one of the resources that I highly recommend out of all those is the cost compare. That is like a huge one, cost compare. It's one of the best. You'll find all, not only trades, everything that you can think about. Anything, everything. You find all the universities. You find how much you need to pay for tuition. Anything that you want. If you want to really further your education, use that resource, the cost compare. And that's it. If you want to contact me, that's how you can reach me. And I'm sure the operator is waiting for this.
Thank you. Mr. Villa, for this wonderful presentation. I'm not going to leave you to go back to your seat. You're going to hang in for a little bit of a while. Because there may be an engagement session that we're going to have now where Q&As are going to happen, and maybe also the audience may have some few questions they want to throw your way. But thank you very much for sharing with us these insights. I mean, adult education, a lot of us probably have a different understanding Most of us who came back from Africa thought about adult education in a different perspective. But here in this part of the world, also it's a different experience altogether. And thanks to Mila, who has been through some of this experience and sharing with us here in this conference, I think it is an added value to the community. So thank you very much for all this information that you have been sharing. With many options available, we can always seek the correct guidance, all right, and also explore out there. As Mila was saying, there are trades out there, and trades are very effective, and this can lead you to do great things in your life. It is not limited with certain understanding. So thanks for also elaborating a little bit on that. I'm going to jump into the questions right away, and I'm going to start with a question to Mila, and after that I'm going to flip over to the audience, and if you have a question, raise your hand and the mic will be passed to you so you can address, Mila can address the question. We will try to keep it within maximum 10 minutes as a whole. So Mila, this question is for you. How can people find help to navigate enrolling in post-secondary learning in Canada?
All right, thank you. So, the first thing is, you need to identify what you really want to do. Like I said earlier, if you are a PSW, for instance, your next, if you really need to continue with health sciences, then you need to move on to become a nurse. Like every province in this country has at least some sort of nursing diploma or degree. So the colleges will offer that. Not only do the colleges offer that, but you also find a lot of scholarship to do this because they really need them. Many colleges will offer you scholarship, the government will offer you scholarship. You also find a lot of grants that you'll be getting as you continue to study. So in my opinion, the nearest college that offers a program, that's where you start. But again, if you find that you are being challenged a little bit, talk to other people who are in the industry, how they did it, and that's how you can go along.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm now going to give chance to the audience if you have any question you would like to ask regarding the topic.
Thank you, Mr. Mila, for giving all these highlights. I think we need it. But I think we have a different perspective when we came to Canada or when we leave Sudan. Many men and women here that study back home, they have degrees and everything. They came here, they think it's not important to go to school because of family and all that stuff. They have to support the family. Going to school, you need a strong support, whether it's your wife or your husband. If you don't have those support, even though you know the benefit of going to school, you still not going to be able to do it. Because you have 5, 6 kids as a Sudanese, you don't have this kid and you need support. So, but some people took that serious and went to school and they changed that mindset. So why don't you tell us what is really, why you should go to school here? Why would you change careers all the time when you have an opportunity to do that? Because some people are stuck in one place. They're scared to move, they're scared to do a job, they're scared to go to school, you know. So you need a support. But is it important, is it worth to risk and take school and take care of the kids and stuff like that? I'm one of that who took that risk, but I want you to tell us why it's important. What is the benefit for families, for ourselves, for our community? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now you would like to answer the question or you want to take more questions? Okay, anybody? Yes. And I will try to remember them.
Thank you. My name is Osvaldo Guara from Torres, Colombia. It was such a great presentation. I think it's for us, this is what we need more of, something that can relate it to our life here, especially in our respective cities. Mine is more of the funding. somebody alluded earlier that we have challenges in terms of, enrolling in some programs, but because of the funding, it's become a challenge. So on your presentation there, I don't know if you can talk more, any funding already there for this type of programs. Thank you.
The two questions are related, which is perfect. So Antilia asked, how can you navigate family and education while you need to raise your family? You need to be able to work. So, and Osvaldo is asking about funding for these programs. To be honest with you, let me go backwards. About the funding, there is this saying that whenever you invest in education, it's a short-term loss and a long-term gain. So what we need to do is, we need to become business people who have to take a loan, not knowing what's going to happen in the business. We are not successful all the time when we take loans for business. We have to take a loan to be able to do our education. But there is also funding, especially for specific programs. All in the health industry, all over Canada, there is funding. PSWs can go to school for free. Nurses in Ontario right now, they get a grant. I may be wrong, but it's about $9,600 to be able to do their program. So you go to a specific college to become a practical nurse, they give you up to $9,600 through OSAP. OSAP, of course, that's where we get our loans. So there is funding for these programs. Interior, like I said, when we go to school, matured, we don't have to leave our jobs. We need to stick on to something. You need to work. You need to do a part-time, you need to do both part-time. Part-time work, part-time school. I did this. And again, the other thing is, with most of the trades, you don't need to stop working. So when I came to this country, Ustaz Mila, of course, but I'm not a Ustaz anymore. I am an IT professional. I've been doing this for years. The question is, how did I become an IT professional? I need to talk to the youth about this. So this is something that doesn't really help us that much, because it has been a journey for me to become an IT. It was a journey for me to become an IT professional. So it took series of studies. But did I have to stop working, or did I have to stop doing something? No, I studied and worked at the same time. I did all different exams, and they recognized me as an IT professional. So now, in the IT industry, over 16 years, your guess is as good as mine. It's definitely really good. I wouldn't have left it. If I would have left it a long time ago if it was a bad thing, then probably I'm prepared to retire as an IT professional. But again, no assessment, of course. So when I retire as an IT professional, I'll probably go back somewhere in Equatoria and really give back my knowledge as a Ustaz, because I love it and I like teaching. So I hope I answered Antilia's question and I answered Osvaldo's question, but if I haven't really, please, you can probe.
We have one question over here.
Thank you, Mira, for this remarkable presentation. I just want to add something to what Antilia said. Most of us are really trapped in this kind of jobs. Not only that, but we have a lot of debt. Like when we came into this country, we did not even get good advice on how to handle money. So now, you start in this job and you have a lot of debt, which you're stressful, and you can't go to school because I believe you're not even going to perform well. So what do you say to such people? Thank you.
All right. So, once upon a time, I was in debt too. And I guess I'm still in debt because I'm paying the bank for the house where I'm living. So we will continue to be in debt. But here is something that we need to remember. I have never seen somebody taken to jail for a student loan. Never. And it is never going to happen. When you come to this country as an immigrant, and you choose to go to school and take a loan to go to school, if you are supported by the government stops supporting you because they feel that you are already economically strong. So they know that you are investing in education, your investment in education is a challenge already. So the little money that they give you, forget about it, because you're going to get the other money. So what I'm trying to say is, if it's a student loan, don't worry about it. The interest is really small. It's not as big as the interest that we take for our houses. And again, like I said, it's a short-term loss, and it's, of course, to gain in the future. Like again, like I said earlier, if you take a loan for a business, you never know if you really succeed or not. But again, with the business, you have an option to write it off, like you become bankrupt, right? But as somebody who's taking a loan to study, you won't do that. But there is something though that I need to really talk about. If we identify our needs and wants, we can be better. I am not a financial advisor. Gune knows this better than me. But sometimes we really don't need things, but we really buy them. I am really serious. There is this kind of pseudo competition that we have. If we just stop that, we will be better. We don't need to compete. We can never be on the same level. I don't know if the economists here, if somebody who is doing economics, the most important thing is we need our numbers to be able to justify that we are stronger. That's all. So we can use our money better to be able to do something better. But sometimes we put ourselves in debt because we just don't know any better. Or we don't care. Or because, you know what, I have to be like the other person. That's it. So it's like a man-made thing. So any man-made disaster, it's disastrous. Any natural disaster, we know it comes once in half a decade or once in a decade. We don't care about it because we know it's phased out anyways. I mean, Rose can speak to that because every time you know that it's flooding in a specific area and you want to buy a house, you need to calculate when did that flooding happen. Then you know it's not going to happen until another 50 years or until another 100 years. So you're safe. You may probably own that house for 50 years or another 100 years. So that's why natural disasters, they are predictable. Man-made disasters are disastrous. So we don't need to put ourselves in the man-made disasters. I hope I answered you.
Was there a question over here?
I'm going to round up the questions. I will give two more chances in the interest of time. So if we have two individuals, be brief to the question, and so that Mila can give you a direct answer.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is James Pitia. Great presentation, Mr. Mila. My question is about engagement. We come once a year, have a good time, ask questions, no follow-up. What is it that we need to do to kind of keep this spark continuing so that those who are not here might be able to hear what we discussed so that it can be beneficial for the community? Thank you very much.
Just what I'll say, just to give my comments and compliment Brother Mila. I'm so inspired. What you have done is really good. Regarding student loan, I see that yes, most of new people from home, when they come here, they're so afraid to go for student loan. Even young children, they say, no, I need to work first, and they make money before I go to college or to university. Well, when I came to Canada in 1986, I had the same thinking. I was afraid of taking loan. But I worked for 2 years. I probably could not save any money here. You won't save money in Canada here. You live from hand to mouth. I found I wasn't able to save any money, so I went to student loan. And then when you give this loan, part of it is a grant. If they give you 10,000, 3,000 is because you pay back on 10,000, you pay back 10,000, you pay back on 7,000. 3,000 is what's that? What they call it? Loan, grants, yes. Yeah, so I went, I took time studies and I finished. And then when I was paying, they just how much I'm earning, then they deduct from my salary. And the was working in Canada. When they left Canada, when I was in Canada, there was no problem, or whatever. Then at the end, when they want to come and pay the money, it was written off. I went where? I was earning some money, the bank paid off. No, it's not ever there. So do not be afraid of taking loan. Take full time, finish, you pay, and then nobody goes to care. So thank you, I'm so inspired for the presentation, and I'm proud of you. So let's follow the example my brother has just said. Thank you for the good presentation.
Thank you very much. I think that was a comment. You have something?
Okay, so there is only one question. So that, James BT, I'm a friend. You know, that was the last thing that I was going to be winding. So we get lost most of the time when we talk about things like this. But thank you for bringing this up. What I would like to say is, I would like to recommend the current office of ESSCA to be able to pass it on to the next office so that we can organize quarterly, monthly, whatever it is, biannually, collaborating like conferences. I mean, what should I say? Events where we can talk about this more. There will be people who really need to get some specific answers, people who need to be pointed to certain directions. Then we can talk more about this, and I'm willing to give you my time to be able to do this anyways. So I can follow this up with you.
Thank you so much. I think one last comment.
No, we have a question over here from the youth here.
All right, from the youth, that's a special question.
Joyce, if it is Ronnie, please let him sit down.
Hello, my name is Ronnie Ranyo. My question is, when you went back to get re-educated and move into a different field, did you feel like it motivated your children and encouraged them to also step up and level up as well? Because I think as youth, it's good to see examples of your elders and the adults around your life also taking steps to level up as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Can I just add, maybe it will answer his question. I myself, I went back to school a couple of, 2 years ago, and my daughter actually was looking at me and like, Mom, your life is miserable. Because I go to work full time, then at night I go to school. My university was in Australia, the time difference really kind of messed me up. For 2 years, maybe I sleep 3 hours a day. And I have a girl who lives with me as well. And she decided that if I make it, she's going to go back to school. And in September, she's going back to Calgary to go back to school because I graduated.
Yeah, you got what my story is. So I was working full time. At the time, I was a mechanic. You know what? I've changed careers from, and I was a mechanic working at night. Sometimes we were very, very lucky. There was not even a single thing to fix at night. So when the other guys were YouTubing, doing this and that, I locked myself in the kitchen. Well, we had a little tiny thing upstairs where maybe we ate also, and I was studying there. I carried my computer the whole time. So I would work a week of nights, and then I would have a week that I'm off completely. So during the week that I'm working nights, I have time to study at night. And then when I'm off for the week, I'm doing my exams. I kept doing this for a long time, and then I'm like, okay, I got enough. Then I moved on to this industry. And in the industry I'm doing right now, they are very supportive. They'll pay for the exams, because they know that they are investing in you. So whenever you have an exam, you just do it and then you get reimbursed. So, and then I kept going. And motivating my kids, yeah, I think my boys are good. But I have 2 boys. They're both working. They have full-time jobs right now. The other thing is that Really, we don't have to challenge our kids that much. They will see what you do. If they see that you are kind of successful, if you talk to them, they'll feel a little bit embarrassed and they will like to kind of mature up a little bit. So, and one of the other things that we as parents did was, like, whenever we take our kids to play basketball, we kind of joke that it's cheaper to pay basketball than to pay a lawyer. So and we had these conversations, and the kids never knew what we were doing. So we traveled to the US and all that. So yeah, you can challenge the kids like really, really silently. And I know, Ronyo, you are very successful, so I don't have to worry about you. I'll worry about the other kids. And I think that wraps up the whole. Oh, Susie wanted to have a comment. So Susie, please.
Just a quick comment, and I think Ronyo, you actually almost read my mind about that question. One of the things that I wanted to kind of comment on is there's a generation here that is quite in a dilemma. And these are the youth that came to this country almost towards that age where they were aging out of the K-12 system. And so there's a good number of those youth who have not necessarily been able to really connect back into the education system because they've not necessarily graduated with the right credentials to get them into the college system or into a university and so they're basically kind of the shadow generation right now, and that's the generation that I think we need to address. And I think to Ronyo's point, or to Ronnie's point, this I don't know what needs to happen. I don't know how we can help that generation. But education, it's not too late to go back to school. And for those youth who are between the ages of 20, 25, maybe up to 30, who have not necessarily been able to sort of follow the system here, they're struggling. And so what would be some things that perhaps, Mila, if you have some ideas on, that we can do to support those youth to think about going back to school or going back to some sort of training. One thing that we should all know is that this country is becoming more difficult because people need to retrain, people need to develop new skills to be able to find even those basic jobs that we're doing out there. Sometimes people are required to do reports, sometimes people need digital skills. And so we need to think about those things in a way that we can support people to think about those things and set goals for how you can retrain or you can upskill yourself so that you can get some of those opportunities that can help you sort of go that level up in some ways. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any comments on that?
Yeah, let me try. It's pretty hard. So, to be honest with you, and for anybody who works in the health care industry or anybody who is a counselor, and as we know, even if we know that somebody has an addiction, we will not force them to go for help. And they will have to accept that they have an addiction, and then they will get the help, in this country especially. And that's the challenge we have. So if we know we can identify them, we need to find a way to be able to reach out to them to check if they would accept help. The one way we can do it is by starting a mentorship program. There are a lot of us who I'm sure they will accept to do that. The mentorship program is one of the things that I still believe in ESSCA we can do, and I kind of wrote a little bit about how we could do it. We need to identify these kids, and if they are willing to be helped, I would be more than happy to take a few of them who if they like to be in my industry, I can mentor them into becoming what they could be in my industry. And again, like I said, this this was specifically about adult education. In the future, if we have another one for the youth or that kind of generation, I will be more than happy to explore possibilities of them, how they can really navigate the system to be able to get into some industries. There are a lot of industries. I'm sure Dr. Rubena can relate to this. Let me just touch on cybersecurity. Just to get to cybersecurity, even if you are a psychologist, you can get to cybersecurity. Even if you don't do math, you can get to cybersecurity. Anything that you can think about, you can get to cybersecurity. That is the virgin industry in what we do. That's what I can say.
Thank you so much, Mila. And again, thank you everyone for the wonderful questions. These are very important questions that are shared here, and we are lucky to have somebody like Mila, a resource in the community, that you can, solicit his help whenever needed, and trying to understand better in this area. One thing I can add before Mila, you go sit down, regardless, education may do limited age. تعليم ده may do umur معين. It is you at the right time, followed by one thing I usually do, and this has been something passed to me by my dad most of the time. You have to be persistent in what you want to achieve in your life. And education is one of them. And there is no loss, it's actually an investment in you. Most of you have been in, I think, in Khartoum. So if you go there, you get into the class, kan fata sorte za ustaz bijere but they are there because they know that they want to learn regardless. Sometimes, like what Mila said, fear, like the step. Life will bring everything at you at any time, but be courageous, take the step. Especially in this part of the world, opportunities what I not can mafi. In class, and sometimes you feel embarrassed and all this with young ones around you. But here there's opportunity. There are various ways of learning. Don't get stuck. Even though our circumstances can be different from time to time, but take the step. You will never lose in education. Never. Yes, these are things that will happen, definitely, but it's in the process of making you better. So I encourage you so much to move in those directions, those opportunities, those options that are available here, just like he mentioned, his contacts, the resources he has. Please reach out, and hopefully, like you say, these sessions has to happen from time to time. Conferences say that. So that and then you can begin to move. So thank you very much for this wonderful presentation, and a big round of applause for our brother Mila, and hopefully we will continue to support and share this exciting journey with everybody. Thank you.
A lot of time talking about this topic because it's very important, and I think one thing that I need to add from a woman's perspective is that when you decide you want to go to school, do not listen to that little voice behind your back and saying that you're not good enough. And do not listen to the voice, the external voice that says that you're too old to go back to school. If you do, then you're ready for it. So I think it is really important that we, when you really put yourself that you want to go back to school and you want to do something better for yourself, you do it one step at a time. Sometimes it's just one unit that you take a semester, do it. That is better than nothing. So with that being said, I think we're going to take a 5-minute break. We have tea, coffee, and everything at the back. We have the Gemafi table. So I think you guys grab coffee, tea, and then come right back. We're just taking 5 minutes before we go to the next session.